What is anthropomorphism? Okay. A stick of rocks of somebody who can give me a definition.
Attributing human characteristics to animals.
And feelings, yeah.
Okay, well, it's the attribution of a human characteristics or behavior to a god, an animal, or an object. So it's not just about animals, it's about, which is something kids pick up easily, isn't it?
That picture is very disturbing, actually.
His eyes are different colours. Look, one's brown and one's whitey grey.
Okay, so very interesting that you noticed that, because I didn't. I just thought it was I don't know, missed something out there.
I think it's my autistic gene.
Hey? And there's another. Who's that? I think I find this much more creepy, actually. But
yeah,
it's the cat in Alice, isn't it?
Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, something very sinister about the Cheshire Cat to me. But there you go. It's something that we all kind of picked up early on in life. And there's ghost stories. Anybody like ghost stories?
No,
not really.
No. Actually, I heard one yesterday, a real life one. I rang a friend of mine who lost her husband a few years ago, and she'd just come back from holiday. And I asked her if she's had a nice holiday, and she told me that she'd seen the ghost of her husband while she was on holiday. I don't know. I have an open mind about these things, because I think if somebody thinks or believes or has seen something, then it's not for me to question it, really. But it was very positive. It wasn't like scary, or she was very happy about it. So, and she's not a particularly fanciful sort of person, so I just said, "Oh, good," But it's just interesting that she wants to tell me. So I think ghost stories are interesting. I think anything supernatural sometimes adds an extra dimension to things, but you may not agree. I find this kind of ghost story more creepy than white sheets and things walking about.
Is that Turn of the Screw? What is it?
Yes, it is. It's the little boy in.
Can you put the big picture?
You can see the. Is it Quint? Or the character in the. It was it. Henry James, isn't it? Story. Yeah. Anyway, there you go. Here we are. Anybody like vampires? Very popular.
Absolutely not. Ugh. No.
Very popular these days. Lots of vampire series on TV and stuff. I used to quite like them when I was about 13 or 14. I think I used to go and see all those Hammer horror things that.
I never did. I never liked it.
All right.
Not me.
Maybe it's a boys' thing. I don't know.
I think maybe it is.
And that's another ghost story, though. But I think this is to do with the ship coming in. I think it looks like it's on a ship. And monsters. Anybody like monsters? No?
Yes. Why not?
It depends whether they're awful monsters or friendly monsters.
I think a lot of monsters films these days are comic, aren't they? They're quite funny and that sort of.
I like the monster in Not Now, Bernard.
That was exactly who I was thinking of, Bernard.
In
Not
what?
now.
In what? Sorry.
There's a children's book called Not Now, Bernard.
It's wonderful.
Okay.
And Where the Wild Things Are. That's another wonderful book.
There's lots of interesting things for children these days, aren't there? Yeah, another kind of monster, I don't know, King Kong type. Did anybody ever see the old King Kong film?
Yeah.
I thought it was quite sad. Yeah.
The monster in that were the human beings, not the creature.
Well, exactly. Yeah, but I mean, it was something very kind of even though it was a bit rickety and, you know.
Very well made. The
Yeah,
effects.
yeah. This is onto myths and legends now. This is an Inuit legend. I don't know what the story is, but I just like the image of obviously somebody, a mermaid or something, saving somebody. See the upturned kind of canoe type boat, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
Is she saving him, or has she upturned the canoe in order to
Grab it.
ram him?
Well,
Like
maybe she's trying to murder him. I don't know, but I get the feeling she's actually he's the canoe's tipped up and she's gone off to save him. I think. But,
I like myths and legends. Those I really like.
His famous Saint George,
Mhm.
who was adopted by almost every country in the world as the patron saint. But there you go.
I always feel really aggrieved that all the poor princess is doing is standing there limply with her hands together in prayer. And if it were you, Jackie, wouldn't you be sort of pulling his tail or something, or kicking
Well,
him?
I'd be trying to tame him.
She may be on the other side of the fence running away, but she looks
I
like
certainly wouldn't leave him to it.
looks like she's deciding which piece of him she's going to cook for tea tonight, doesn't she? Really?
Yeah, or perhaps she's cheering the dragon on and she doesn't really.
Yeah.
Yeah, get rid of
Awful.
that. Get rid of that male chauvinist pig on the horse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I love the Arabian Nights stories, but I used to do when I was a kid.
Oh, Lorraine can't get in. Hold on.
She can't get in.
No, it's all right. I'll deal with it.
Okay. Anybody like Arabian Nights?
Yeah.
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 Yes.
I used to love them when I was a kid. Something exotic about in the children's books, all the drawings and towers and turrets and things.
I always used to worry though why this poor woman had to keep on telling stories to save her life. I mean, what had she done to get her, be in this position anyhow?
Oh, there you go. There's another story of male domination.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, but she got there in the end. Greek myths and legends too are interesting. Lots of fantastic stories of gods and monsters.
Yeah, I used to love those as a kid. Yeah.
I did too.
Oh yes, I liked the Greek myths and legends. Really interesting. The Roman ones.
Yeah, all the kind of a lot of the morality stories. Here we are, romance, very popular, apparently. Because there's bits and bits of looks like Jane Austen type stuff, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, they're all Jane Austen, aren't they?
Another, I don't know, a different way for women having to get married to be successful in life or whatever. Kind of Jane Austen. A bit more earthy type of romance there. But, fairy tales.
Yeah.
Fairy tales are, when you're 4 or 5, fantastic. Some of them quite. Sorry?
There was a well-known psychoanalyst, Bruno Bettelheim, who made a study of fairy tales. He spent most of his life, he was a Holocaust survivor. He spent most of his life working with children. And he used to use fairy tales a lot because he thought some of the horrors in that children related directly to them, and he could use them in his work.
Yeah.
I mean, what about Grimm?
Just thought I mentioned.
Terrible.
Brothers Grimm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are grim. Philip Pullman has written rewritten all the Grimm fairy tales in his own way. I've got it here somewhere. It's very good, actually. You know, Philip.
Is he updated? Is he
Yeah.
updated?
No, he's not really updated. He's not updated them. It's just the way that he's written them. He's stuck with the tale.
Okay.
I'll bring it in one day, Graham. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of pretty cruel. Some of them pretty.
Oh, yeah. And children like that sort of stuff.
Yeah, they do. I think what they do when, you know, because you use them a lot when you're teaching young children, and even dramatize some of them or make up other stories. Children are in a safe space dealing with issues in a really safe way.
Mhm.
And so they're meeting them without actually experiencing them. And I think it gives them a little bit of resilience.
Did you go through Hansel and Gretel with them in its original form?
Well, I've just told them the story of Hansel and Gretel. I've actually done a really good drama on Hansel and Gretel, but we haven't got time to tell you about it here with children, where they actually meet the witch. It's a really good one, that one. Anyway. And it works. It works.
Well, I think that the thing is the children survive, don't they, in Hansel and Gretel? It's not kind of, they go through the horrors, but they actually survive.
Yes, you don't do many ones where they all die at the end.
No.
Not so good.
So it's kind of, I mean, we worry about kids watching things about murder and stuff these days, and I don't suppose it's very much different, really, in the sense that you know, bad things happen, and children need to know that they happen and how to deal with them, basically. There we go. Storage of courage and valor. I grew up on a lot of this gung-ho stuff, you know. Heroes and villains and all the rest of it, but some of them are good stories, actually. Some of them are a little bit sort of, I don't know, quite often class-ridden and sort of, you know.
Very much so. Goals.
Yeah. Brave colonels and jolly good forelock tugging. There you go. All those 1950s films about that I grew up on, because they came just after the war, and they were all about class and you know, being a jolly good chap and all the rest of it. I'm sure it did me any good, but there you go. Remember this guy?
Yeah.
Oh yes, marvelous.
Morris.
Yes.
Yes.
Morris.
I used to love him. I used to really love his stories.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a good series.
It was like your uncle telling you a story.
Yes, it was.
And he used to do all the voices and things. I think perhaps somebody who's just died, Bernard Cribbins, who recently died. I think for later generations, he was a similar sort of character.
Yes, it was.
You know, obviously too late for us, but that idea of somebody telling you a story and doing all the voices and all the rest.
Michael Rosen, I think, is good at that as well.
Yeah.
I see Hilary Mantel's died, which is talking of storytellers in different.
Sad. She was only 70.
Yeah.
She had a stroke, didn't she?
Did she? I didn't read it.
I think she's been unwell for a long time. I mean, she's been unwell all her life, actually. I can't remember what it's called, but she's been ill since she was 20. So she's, you know, by that token, she's doing okay, I suppose. But it's very sad. 70 years of age and still, you know, writing prime anyway. Amazing storyteller. Science fiction.
Yeah, I used to.
Is this for boys only?
No, it depends what it is.
Yeah.
I used to love Isaac Asimov.
Yes.
Yeah, and I really loved that, but it hasn't. I don't like it if it's fanciful. I like it to be embedded in some kind of reality, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Going back a bit, I used to like the Jules Verne stories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and stuff like that. They used to appeal to me.
Why do boys have this obsession with dinosaurs? Because it does seem to be a little boy thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's true.
I know.
Yeah,
Dan had
little girls like them too. I know from my
Oh,
granddaughter.
I quite like them too, but I mean, all my great nephews are obsessed. You know, it's like on their pajamas, it's everywhere.
Maybe
Perhaps
this is
it's something to do with strength.
this is actually a lady dinosaur, by the way. So
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, Jackie, you mentioned about reality, but with sci-fi, a lot of the writers say with Asimov, without Arthur Clarke, we wouldn't have the internet, the world around.
Yeah.
They opened the ideas for people's future reality.
Yeah, like Star Trek and those wonderful flip things that they used to have. Oh, I love Star Trek, the old ones.
Yeah, there we are.
Oh,
20,000 leagues under the sea, the giant squid. Do you remember that? Yeah.
yes, love that.
Another storyteller you may not recognize, but I remember from my very early days, was a gentleman called Bransby Williams, who used to be on the radio and then in the early days of television. And long before Alistair Sim, he used to, every Christmas, he used to do Scrooge, Christmas Carol anyway. And I used to, it was only on once, you know, I had to make sure that I had some, even when I was about, I think he must have shown it till I was about 12 or something, but he was just a wonderful storyteller. An old actor, obviously, from back in the day. I mean, he was an old man in the early 50s, but he used to really capture my imagination. And that's about it. That's a keep showing that one, don't I? But there you go. It's the monkey.
No, did you mention the 7 basic? I wasn't there on Friday. Did you mention the 7 basic plots?
No.
No.
Actually, Graham did mention that there were only so many stories, which by that he meant the 7 basic plots, like Cinderella and yeah.
Sorry, Graham, I couldn't get in with the password. It weren't. Jackie sent me a link, but I've got a book called "Don't Bet on the Prince," which is a bit of an analysis of fairy tales, and it talks a lot about Little Red Riding Hood, which fundamentally is meant to be about rape, and the wolf and all that stuff.
Okay, well, I'll try and here it is anyway. It's called Childhood Rhymes and Stories. They remind me of winter, listening to Mum, stretched out on the hearthrug, a mouthful of thumb. A fireside, a fender, a great oak surround, a green-tiled hearth where stories abound. Great flames and a fireguard, a fork with some toast. These are the things I remember the most. Witches and wizards, fairies and frogs, forests and foxes, mysterious fogs. Jack Horner and Bo Peep, though little by name, their stories remembered in the Tots Hall of Fame. Sugar and sweetmeats and everything nice, grand clocks and stairways and disabled mice. Pudding and pie, muffin and plum, fat Humpty Dumpty and tiny Tom Thumb. Great lofty castles, princes and kings, wicked stepmothers doing terrible things. Learning to count, collecting new words. Miss Muffet sits eating her whey and her curds. Boys in knee breeches, jackets with tails, shoes silver buckled, ships with tall sails. Girls with sweet faces and long floaty dresses, dimples and smiles neath their beautiful tresses. Black sheep and blackbirds in meadows and pies, naughty young lads telling half-truths and lies. learning a poem with rhythm and rhyme, following the stories, telling the time, warm and secure, but learning as well that both good and evil on this earth do dwell.
That's really good, Graham.
Yeah,
I've not
rather.
heard that before, Graham. That's great.
Yeah, that's a really
Nice
good
one.
one. Pop it on Facebook. It's a good one.
It's a
Okay.
good one.
I thought, Sandy, you might be being critical of that one, given the image of girls that it put on, you know.
Well, I didn't want to say, but go on.
Yes,
Get away with it.
It's only
Yeah.
reportage. It's only what actually was presented to me. Yeah.
I like your mention of the green tiles because our half had green tiles as well.
Yeah. We had a, it was like an oak fireplace surround, and there was
Yeah.
green tiles, and we used to have like a big brass fender, I think.
Yeah.
And then there's all the stories that have no words in them that are played through music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Scheherazade, you're talking about the Thousand Nights, and Till Eulenspiegel, Night in the Bear Mountain, Rite of Spring. The
From the world.
generations, you know, Elgar describing his friends without a word there, but just
Yeah.
sounds, and Maxwell Davies thing just even 30 years ago, Orkney Wedding with Sunrise, where the leader of the orchestra is meant to drink whiskey through the piece, so he's a bit pie-eyed by the end of it, trying to play a solo
Violin.
and then there's dance and mime and sculpture and painting and all kinds of stuff that express those stories, that Icelandic sagas, Beowulf, all to do with, you know, the morals and
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
Yes. Yeah.
My daughter grew up with Harry Potter, you know.
Yeah.
And together we loved Harry Potter.
Yeah.
I mean, we couldn't wait for the next book to come out. And like, she was a child, I was an adult, you know, obviously. But we both had the same sort of fever for it, really. And we went to see the Harry Potter, you know, the big it's not like an experience, the Harry Potter experience, really. And at the end of it, there's a huge model of the school, you know, can't remember what it's called.
Hogwarts.
And Eleanor and I both stood there crying.
Yeah, I think
we were so overwhelmed by the experience.
It was on in New York when I was there the other week, and there was a huge queue around the block waiting to get in.
I can imagine.
Kids of all ages, really. But
yeah.
When I was on the tram going home from Mosley last night.
Got it right, Graham.
There was a little boy in front of me with his mum, and the tram was rather noisy, actually. There was this drunken bloke got on with his pal and making a terrible. They weren't doing anything horrible, but they were just making a lot of noise. And this little boy in front of me was totally engrossed in his Harry Potter book. He wasn't taking any notice of this noisy drunk. It was really quite nice to see, really. You know.
it got so many children reading.
Yeah.
I've never read them. I think because I don't have any children or grandchildren, I miss out on a lot of
they're fabulous.
They're gripping, absolutely gripping.
Yeah. I think that was my favourite one, The Goblet of Fire. Yeah.
Going back to stories, I've got this. Some friends of mine run a sort of art program in Lancashire, and there is I don't know if you remember somebody called Yvonne Battle Felton, Sandy, but I think she did a workshop at Ashton that I went to once. She's an a black American writer who lives in Manchester, and she's doing a series of storytelling things in Lancashire about ghosts and stuff. So it's just that there's so much going on in the world that, you know, is only just down the road from us, but some of this is perhaps a bit too far away. But we're planning to go and see a couple of these theatrical storytelling events sometime in the near future. If anybody's interested, I can send you the link to find out about it. Would you like it? Sorry?
I'd be interested.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll put it on the. I'll send out a group email, and if anybody wants to.
Mark Henderson from Mosley Writers is also a storyteller who writes, and he's published, and he's quite interested in the sort of legends from the north of Derbyshire and around that area. He's dug quite deeply into some of the folk tales that have been around in Derbyshire. And
but with stories and characters and the basic characters, when I was in Oz with the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra, they wanted to get the kids in the area interested in opera, and you've got all these downtown kids who have no interest whatsoever, and they said, well, they were doing the Ring at the time, so we'll just bring the kids into the Ring. And they said, Bill, what can you write to bring them in? And I said, well, if you want to get them interested in this, then let's take the characters that someone has written into a story, give them the characters, not the story, not the music, not anything, just give them the characters and say, okay, let's write our own story. And we did two. There was a piece called Fig Arrow from Figaro, and Thor and Dot from Turandot. We just took the characters, said, there you go, do that. And they came up with these fantastic stories. And what happened and that was for the performers of the South Australian Opera Company with the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra, and we performed their pieces, and I expanded it for the orchestra and gave them to the soloists, and then they all wanted to go and see the original operas. So that catalyst of taking them through the storytelling got them interested in seeing, not for the piece, but what someone else had written using those same characters.
Yeah, if anybody's got 6 months and would like to plough through a book, it's by Christopher Brooker, and it's called The 7 Basic Plots. And it's the theory that there are only actually 7 stories in the world, and every story that's ever been created fits into one of these 7 categories.
Well, they must be very long to be that long a book.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting, but you do need a long holiday to read it in. It's very...
And what are the 7 plots, Sandy?
Oh, I can't remember them all. What's in here? Overcoming the Monster is one of them.
Yeah.
Rags to Riches is another one. Voyage and Return is one. The Quest is another one. From Shadow into Light is another one, and I can't remember the others, but they're all in there.
It's quite a broad brush. Quite a broad brush, that, isn't it? Really, it's not exactly narrowing it down to.
So we've got another musical in the making. Take each of those 7 things. There you go. 7.
Can we just finish the first one?
Oh, I did. Oh, you wait.